Some of them where I was touring across the UK, and I would just do them where I could for a moment of clarity. And you know, in a lot of ways, that ended up becoming Redacted Tonight because, you know, basically from that, I was asked to make a comedy show for RT America, and I made Redacted Tonight with the help of a wonderful cast. So.
Yeah, I really love your show, and I saw you at El Cid. I believe that was almost a couple weeks ago.
I got out right in time before all the fires started.
I know. Oh my God, it's still blazing right now. It's really unfortunate. So yeah, right before that.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice performance too as well.
Thank you. Yeah, I did a little bit smaller room that time because the time before in May I was in the El Rey Theater. Which was much larger, so I kind of did the bigger show then, but we have now filmed that and just been released this week in my first comedy special in 4.5 years, and that's available at leecampcomedyspecial.com. It's called Super Patriotic Very Uncle Sam Comedy Special, Not Allowed on American TV.
Oh, great. Yeah, I like it. You know, I've been talking about just before you came on the show. I think that there's a different types of comedians that are emerging right now, especially in the political climate that we're seeing. You know, what I liked about you was that you're very poignant on a lot of the topics. I agreed with what you were talking about. You know, the fact that there's, you know, anti-corporate, 1%, just kind of a, you know, look what's happening here. Who is controlling, our government or the dialogue of what's happening, even globally in terms of politics. And I think it's really great that you found an audience that really is resonating with that type of viewpoint as well.
And I was able to find that audience because of, some level of internet freedom, the information revolution that the corporations are now trying desperately to crush and tamp down and censor. We're seeing it both with the crushing of net neutrality and the purging of Facebook pages and Twitter pages. And, the latest one was, 600 sites or 800 sites, something like that, on Facebook taken down in the same day. And instantaneously, all of their editors and everyone connected to those pages also suspended on Twitter. So it's a conspiracy. Oh, my God, an actual conspiracy, conspiring of Twitter and Facebook and maybe other platforms as well to work together to silence these voices. And many of them are very legit outlets like Anti-Media, Free Thought Project, Police the Police, Cop Block. And, somebody said that if you add up the followers, about 200 million followers all just vanished, years of work. And that's what the corporate state will do because they're very threatened by this information age that has come out. It's also why, I mentioned that comedy special. It's also why that comedy special is only on a website. It's self-produced and it's only at that one site, Lee Camp Comedy Special, because, corporate media is not going to air a comedy special like that. So.
Do you find, because in a sense, I think Russia Today is pretty much like alternative mainstream, really, in some ways, because it still has, it's on the television airwaves. Do they still control what you're going to say off of the show, or do you find that there are certain things that you're not supposed to sympathize with? That might be a loaded question, but,
Not only do they not control what I'm not supposed to say off of the show, they've never told me to say anything or not say anything on the show. I write my show. I come up with all my topics. I'm probably the only comedy news show where the host writes all of the words he's saying for my own segments. And I've never been told to say something nor told not to say something. So it's a ridiculous amount of freedom. And I think the reason, that part of the reason that they changed their name from Russia Today to RT America or RT was not to trick anybody, but it's because you had a lot of American voices that are just doing what we've always been doing. Jesse Ventura is there and Larry King and, Ed Schultz before he passed away and Chris Hedges, who was booted from the New York Times because he came out against the Iraq War. Gasp, how could you? And, all these great voices find an incredible amount of freedom, far more freedom than you can get at MSNBC, CNN, Fox News, any of them. And you'll hear that over and over again. Rick Sanchez just started a show at RT, and he was forced out of the other networks. And you really have to, in order to be on those corporate media networks, you've got to be inside a tiny window of acceptable thought. And I have never fit inside of that, neither in my stand-up days nor now in my TV show days. And that's why I'm on one of the few channels in America where we're allowed to actually have freedom of speech.
Well, that's really wonderful that you found a spot to do that in. And so I think it's inspiring for other comics or artists that there's a spot still that they can have a creative freedom.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I was saying earlier about the internet. I think that a lot back, there are some great voices of comedians that, were pushing the limits, like George Carlin and Bill Hicks and Richard Pryor. But they all got famous first doing acceptable material that was allowed on those airwaves. And then they went farther to the side that wasn't really allowed, but at that point they were so famous that it was kind of too late. So, well, with Bill Hicks is a different story, but with George Carlin, he was basically censored from most of the mainstream networks once he became too edgy and talking about politics, and then he was just on HBO because there was more freedom there then, and so. Nowadays, we've got the kind of different thing where you can have success on the internet and then maybe get to a point that you're big enough that a few channels will allow you to speak these truths. But these are truths that have never been really allowed in America, at least not since corporations gained any kind of toehold in the early 1900s. This is nothing new,
No, Well, it isn't, but the subject matter, I think the subject matter of free speech is really important right now because I've been watching what's been happening on Twitter and YouTube, and I can't monetize my channel right now because apparently the topics that I'm covering are just it's not acceptable. It's not advertiser friendly according to them, which is fine. I'd rather just.
Well, yeah, but before saying it's fine, think of how hilarious that is. That CNN or whatever can manufacture consent for war, killing millions of people, and the advertisers are fine with that. That's not a problem. That's patriotic. But if an advertiser, Big Oil or something, is seen on your page, that might hurt their brand. It's hysterical that you are more threatening than our networks that just allow for an exploitative system, Wall Street running amok, a prison industrial complex that imprisons more people than any country in the world, which is a crime against humanity. You can push all that all you want, and as long as you're for that stuff, it's not a problem. But, advertisers don't want to get near your channel or my channel. That might look bad.
That's right. That's right. Well, I almost think it's a badge of honor now. It's like, yeah, it's like, I don't even get advertised. I can't even super chat. That's gone too. But whatever. You just keep going.
Yeah, well, it's time for the alternative outlets and media and everything to move to other sites and I'm not here as a spokesman for any one site, but there are some alternatives that are growing, like Minds and Steemit and Mastodon, and I think we need to keep building those up and keep growing them. While I don't say delete your Facebook page, because the truth is Facebook is so large that it's almost like a second internet. And, for activists and those speaking a level of truth that's not allowed on the corporate airwaves, I don't want them all abandoning the number one platform that Americans check every day. So I think that's a bad idea, but I think we need to build up the other platforms.
Yeah, I do too. And some of those platforms have cryptocurrency as part of it. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm not an expert on those sites, so I can't say whether they're using it perfectly or, how that works. But I can say that cryptocurrency in general, I think, is very important. I think Bitcoin is, it's taking the monetary system outside of the governmental, the central reserve system, central banking system, and that's why it is so threatening to the corporate state, and why they're doing their best to shackle it and chain it down. And I don't know whether they can succeed or not. Those who are Bitcoin evangelists say that no, it cannot be stopped. It's kind of like the cat's out of the bag, and it's not going to change the world. It is still a monetary system. It is still a system of wealth and lack thereof, and the wealthiest people in the world will buy up a lot of it. But it does make it makes a lot of big steps away from a central banking system that has enriched the rich even more and made the poor even poorer for decades, generations now. So.
Thank you for your opinion on that. I think that I'm open to cryptocurrency and checking it out. It's like, why not? And again, it is taking the power away from them. It is something new. Some people, are disturbed by the fact that it's digital, and there are people that think that, well, it's artificial intelligence and we're becoming more dependent on our phones. And like yesterday, I think my cell phone said that I dropped a pin somewhere at this market, and it freaked me out. I was like, what pin? I was like, how does it know?
We got to hear the end of the story. Was it right? Did you find the pen?
Well, you know what? I figured it was a pen I probably didn't need, and so it wasn't really a priority. But it was kind of like, if I had special pins, I would probably go back and get it. But, I was like, no. Yeah,
it's got a pen. It's connected to your phone. But no, okay. So I think there's two separate things you brought up here. To talk about, I don't trust cryptocurrency because it's digital. You gotta keep in mind that our money is basically digital now. Like our dollars are not printed. They are 98%, 95%, something like that, are never printed. They're never hard cash. It is just ones and zeros in a computer somewhere that no one ever really looks at. So it's like we already have a digital currency in a sense. We don't know where these numbers are flying all over the internet. And this is how you can have $21 trillion unaccounted for at the Pentagon. They're not carrying pallets of cash around. It's just ones and zeros that are disappearing on a spreadsheet somewhere. So, I think that the idea that, oh my God, it's digital is like a laughable argument. In terms of, are we getting too dependent on AI? It's like, yeah, technology is advancing exponentially, and we are like the fleshy monkeys that are getting left behind. We will soon, algorithms are deciding our lives, they're deciding how to drop a drone bomb, they're deciding who gets locked up in jail, and it will continue down that route. And if we don't get a handle on AI and really, create a controlled AI system, it will very soon outthink us, outcontrol us. It will, will create, people already want to create robots that can reproduce themselves, tiny, micro robot. Like we could very well, Elon Musk says it's a far greater threat than nuclear weapons. And I think in a way he might be right, because nuclear weapons, at least some human has to, could be a crazy asshole, but some human has to make a decision to drop a bomb. Whereas AI, it's like we're creating these things. We don't even know how they're going to end up. We don't know what they're going to do. And not just AI, but technology in general. They've genetically altered mosquitoes, and they're releasing them in the population because they're thinking it'll help sterilize the mosquito population. But then it caused a bloom of mosquitoes where they're everywhere. And it's us not understanding how to alter our environment.
Well, and I'm hearing, and I don't know how real it is or not, but I've heard people saying that it's giving a synthetic flu. That when the mosquito bites you, people are saying that they're getting sick. But I'm not. Again, that kind of I can't be factual on that.
Well, yeah. I think a lot of us are synthetic idiots right now. So.
Right. Yeah, I think so. I think so too. Unfortunately. So I wanted to ask you about. I did do a show about that article. There was an article that happened in the New York Post where I think there was a lot of propaganda surrounding you bringing up the topic of Seth Rich and Julian Assange.
Even better, it was the New York Times. It was the cover.
New York Times, sorry.
The cover of the arts section decided to do an attack piece on me that was pretty hilarious. I mean, after my breakdown of all their propaganda went viral, they ended up retracting multiple things from that 2-page article or whatever it was. So, how funny is it? The New York Times literally can't do a 2-page article on a comedian and get everything right. Like, that's amazing.
That is amazing. Why do you think they did that?
Without assuming they were like told to by some higher power, I will just say this, that the mainstream media, the corporate media, they are designed in a lot of ways to act as the white blood cells to attack infections of the corporate state. And those who speak out against corporations, who speak out against Wall Street, who speak out against endless war, who speak out against our fraudulent elections that, we're voting on black box machines. Those of us who do that are infections to the status quo, the system as it is, the exploitative system as it is. We are the infections. We are hurting it because it's not allowed to just exploit untouched. And so they are the white blood cells. They're designed to weed out those infections. And so the New York Times and the NPR did another hit piece on me that I also debunked. And both of them attacked me because I am the infection. You are too, but maybe it can depend on, what level of viewership you get or something like that, whether they find you threatening. Maybe it's because I do comedy and they thought, oh, that allows more people to pay attention to it. Who knows? But they decided to go after me. And, that's their job. And so now when you do a Google search of me, the New York Times and the NPR piece are some of the first two things that come up, because they want to make sure that for those who don't really know who I am, who are a little unfamiliar, the first thing they're going to see is the full, straightforward, full frontal propaganda that lies about me. And, I hope that because my responses to both those pieces went viral and I debunked both of them, that hopefully those are pretty high up too. But still, Google's going to reward the New York Times more than anything I ever do. And that's designed that way. Same with Wikipedia. Wikipedia, not that 90% of what Wikipedia has on there isn't true, but at the end of the day, they're going to trust a quote from the New York Times more than they're going to trust a quote from me or you. So when the New York Times is putting out propaganda, the Wikipedia will just feed that propaganda to people. And, it's designed, the system's kind of designed that way to make sure that that's at the top of the Google search, because the Google algorithm is designed to reward those white blood cells that are attacking the infections to the corporate state.
I agree with you. One of the things that I found, the reason why I did a show on it too, because of the fact that you are a comedian, that they had done an attack, and also you were talking about you clearly stated to your audience that you were not a conspiracy theorist about Seth Rich or Julian Assange, so you were really making a point about it that wasn't being a sympathizer. So I couldn't figure out. To me, I thought, well, why did they go after him just because you merely mentioned it? As if you were standing on some other, underground political platform that they're trying to pigeonhole you with.
Yeah, I mean, to be clear to your viewers, I basically said I don't know about Seth Rich. I don't know whether he could have leaked something or not. I do know that Julian Assange, and what I said in that segment, which is now 2 years ago or whatever, I did say that Julian Assange in that interview hinted that Seth Rich was the leak, but he hinted in a very weird way that just made me angry. And so I was saying basically, give us the truth. What are you talking about? Give us the truth. And that was all the piece said. But I think the reason the New York Times felt a need to point to that and say, oh, he puts forward Seth Rich conspiracies is because it's just a good way for them to tell their fellow New York Times readers that, oh, this guy's out on a limb. He's way out there. He's putting forward crazy conspiracies. And it just served that purpose. So what's hilarious is I didn't even give them what they wanted. I didn't even give them, oh my God, Seth Rich definitely leaked it like this. and so they used it anyway. They just pretended basically I'd said that. But and then you got to, in order to really see the irony, you got to stack on top of that the fact that New York Times is willing to put forward like Russiagate hysteria conspiracies every day of the week. So they're all in.
Okay, good. I'm glad you're saying that.
They're all in. They're all into conspiracies. They love conspiracies, but
right. Yeah. It looks like they're doing the very thing that they're accusing anybody else doing, and it's like, and what do you think about this? I mean, I think that people are marching. They got people to march for Robert Mueller.
That's incredible.
They were marching and saying things. I'm like, why are you doing this?
It's so phenomenal because, and let me just say, because I'm sure plenty of your listeners don't know where I stand or whatever. I am left wing. I consider myself left wing. I hate Trump as much as I hated the last president, the one before that. I hate corrupt elites. So I am no fan of Trump. But the idea that anyone should be marching to protect Robert Mueller, a Republican former head of the FBI who was front and center on the WMD bullshit to invade Iraq. He went in front of Congress. You can watch the videos on YouTube right now of him saying the WMD in Iraq, we got to invade Iraq. It's like no one should ever be listened to. They should be laughed out of the building after the WMD bullshit, and yet here he is again saying, I have the proof that 14 Russians in a clickbait farm putting up a Facebook photo of Bernie Sanders in a banana hammock that really swung this election. That's what really did it, not the fact that the media gave Trump 23 times as much coverage as Bernie Sanders. That's not what did it. What did it was these couple of Facebook images. It's so laughable, and the fact that so-called liberals or progressives are marching out there, protect this bullshit is, they've come down with this neo-McCarthyism, or as I like to call it, Maddow disease, which Rachel Maddow has created. So, every day, the Fairness and Accuracy Reporting says she does 55% of her coverage on something Russian related. Every day they zoom, the beginning of the show is her with red dots on a board. She's completely lost her mind.
Yeah. I think so too. Yeah. It's well, in a way, I'm personally, I'm glad they got rid of Sessions. I think Sessions needed to step down, and I think it's clearly they realized with him out of the way, Robert Mueller is on his way out. The whole little hornet's nest is about to be exposed on what really went down.
It's amazing to see the propaganda and corruption fold back on itself, because Trump he could be indicted on a ton of things, like, for one thing, the emoluments clause. It's illegal to enrich yourself with the presidency, which he does daily. He has the Trump Hotel 3 feet from the White House, where all of the foreign dignitaries come and buy $1 million rooms to put money into his pocket so they can influence him. Like, there are things you could indict him for, but instead they don't want to focus on any of that, because guess what? The Democrats are doing that shit too. They're corrupt too. They're taking money wherever they can get it too. So you can't point at that. So instead they're pointing at what is almost definitely a complete lie, that, Russia was the one that got Trump elected. And so you've got the mainstream media pointing at this lie rather than the actual reasons you could indict Trump. And then Trump saying, well, the mainstream media is lying about this. And Trump, that's the only thing he tells the truth on. That is the one thing he tells the truth on, is that, yes, Russiagate is bullshit. However, then he's lying about everything else, because you can provably show that he's lying about a lot of things. I mean, he just blamed the fires in California on bad forest management. I mean, the guy's out of his goddamn mind. But the one thing he's telling the truth on is that the media has lost their mind in Russiagate. So it's like, it's all just folding in on itself in a fucking chaotic mess. I mean, people have to turn away from these ridiculous political leaders. Like, we don't need these leaders. We need to figure out our own, communities, and take back our nations and our states and stop turning to corrupt, wealthy. I mean, over 50% of Congress is multimillionaires. These are not the people that understand average Americans. It's a fucking charade.
Yeah, it is. You know what? We are getting. We've got about 4 more minutes left with the broadcast. First of all, I want to thank you for being here today. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you. And if people like what I'm saying, then they'll, and I granted I didn't make it very funny right now. However, if you check out my comedy special, I take all of these topics that you and I are discussing, and it's my first comedy special in over 4.5 years, stand-up comedy, and it was taped right there in LA, and it's at leecampcomedyspecial.com. 10% of all the proceeds are going to Veterans for Peace and Food and Water Watch, and you can check it out there.
Thank you, Ali. Do you have any final thoughts that you would like to say to, I don't know, like maybe to other comedians that are coming up like yourself, you know, or just your final thoughts on anything that you feel like?
Well, I wouldn't want to narrow it to comedians. I'd say to people who, you know, want to tell the truth in whatever art form, whether it be music or comedy or art or, you know, painting or whatever. It's not to go the anti-corporate, you know, to call out the truth about the corporations and the power elite that actually rule our lives. It's not the easiest path, and you're not going to get rewarded for it most of the time. And you just need to understand that, and you need to do it for the love of the passion and the message you're sending, and just don't give up. You know, keep doing it for that reason. And that's the reason I was doing it. And weirdly, I ended up with this bizarre TV show. But in general, that's the reason you have to be in it. Don't get in it for the wealth. Do it for the fact that our world has to change, and quickly, because our environment is collapsing around us, and people have to stand up now and unite to change this. Because you just can't look to these corrupt politicians. I mean, if you look at these midterms, all of the true progressive anti-corporate candidates, they were all weeded out before even the general election. They were weeded out in the primaries by the amount of money up against them. Something like 7 candidates actually got in that weren't taking corporate money, and some of them are even backtracking now. So really, it's probably like 4. You know, so they're like out of hundreds of races. I mean, that's how well our system has mastered the ability to make sure anyone who questions the corporate state is pushed out and not allowed into these discussions.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being here, and your wisdom and your talent. And I wish you well. So, yeah, thank you so much.
Shake it, real good. Shake it,